I'm Leon Lovelace, and this is Unstoppable Force. Now I got a news story for you, and it's from The Guardian and from some other news articles, but the big news that happened yesterday was the FCC officially gutted net neutrality. Alright, so I'll start with this article. Well, the Guardian's article. Okay, the U.S.'s top media regulator voted to end rules protecting the open internet on Thursday, a move critics warn will hand control of the future of the web to cable and telecoms companies. At a packed meeting of the Federal Communications Commission in Washington, the watchdog commissioners voted 3-2 to dismantle the net neutrality rules that prevent internet service providers from charging websites more for delivering certain services, blocking others should they, for example, compete with services that cable company also offers. Alright, and then there were protests outside the building, but I'll go down a little bit. So that's good that a lot of people are protesting. But of course, Mike Figueroa from the Humanist Report, he's done a lot of videos about net neutrality, and he's talked about several times that Ajit Pai said he didn't give a shit about what the public said. He was going to kill net neutrality. Alright, I'll skip down a little bit, but FCC Chair Ajit Pai and his two fellow Republicans voted for the repeal. Pai said the current rules had impeded innovation and addressed non-existent concerns. We are restoring the light touch framework that has governed the internet for much of its existence. He called claims that the move would kill the internet outlandish. Net neutrality's advocates argue that an open internet has been essential to the creation of today's web and has allowed companies like Skype to compete with telecom providers and Netflix to change the media landscape. They say the removal of the rules will affect consumers worldwide. Okay. I'm not sure how much it's going to affect people outside of the U.S., but at least inside the United States. Well, I guess it can, because maybe a few other governments and a few other presidents or prime ministers may say, oh, you know what? I think I want to roll back the open internet in my country, because those companies or corporations will give me and my buddies a big paycheck. So some other countries might do that too. But I was watching Jimmy Dore's shows, and he did a video about how municipalities have been starting to provide internet service to their citizens. So that's a big way we could fight against this, is pushing our local and city governments to start providing broadband internet. And I have a few articles about that. These are from a few years ago, but it still shows you some of the hypocrisy and some of the lies that Ajit Pai has talked about. Because here's one from governing.com. And this one's from 2014. I'll start at the top. It says, Wilson, North Carolina determined nearly a decade ago that high-speed internet access would be essential to the community's social and economic health in the 21st century. And it goes on a little bit. But private internet service providers would not join the city in building a high-speed broadband network. So in 2006, so this was 11 years ago, the internet service provider said, no, I don't want to invest. So there were, at least in this instance, and I'm sure in almost all these instances, there were no regulations impeding the private companies from investing in broadband service. So in 2006, Wilson City Council voted unanimously to go it alone, borrowing about $35 million to deliver fiber optic cable to homes, schools, and businesses via its municipal electric utility. And back in 2014, Wilson is North Carolina's first gigabit city. Its Greenlight broadband utility serves 7,000 of 50,000 residents with internet speeds between 20 megabits per second and 1 gigabit per second. That's just about the fastest speed around, at least in 2014. Roughly 20 times faster than what private cable companies typically offer. Only about 10% of U.S. homes have access to a service that fast. So that's in Wilson, North Carolina. Here's another article from kcur.org. This one's from 2015, and they talk some about states blocking cities from offering internet service. Okay, increasingly, Americans see fast internet as being more like a functioning sewer line than a luxury. And to that end, a number of cities are trying to get into the internet provider business. But laws in 19 states hamper those efforts. President Obama wants to lift those restrictions. Supporters of what's known as municipal broadband can't wait. Alright, I'll skip down a little bit. Here we go. The group's executive director, Deb Socia, says dependable high-speed broadband has become a social justice issue. This is about people and people in communities who need resources for businesses, for e-government, for participatory democracy, for healthcare, for transportation, for education, says Socia. Everything we do is related to our access to technology. I'll skip a little bit on this right here, but I'll start with, but the major internet service providers don't face much competition in some places, so they're not at all that motivated to upgrade. Faced with that, some towns have gotten into the internet business themselves. Mikhail Klein works for one of them, Chantu, Kansas. And there's a few other instances that I found in a little bit of digging that a couple other cities had to get into it. Alright, and here's one from CNN Tech. This is back in 2014. And it's about Chattanooga, Tennessee's municipal broadband service. Because Chattanooga rolled out a fiber optic network a few years ago that now offers speeds of up to 1,000 megabits per second or 1 gigabit for just $70 a month. This was back in 2014. The cheaper 100 megabit plan costs $58 per month. Even the slower plan is still light years ahead of the average US connection speed, which stood at 9.8 megabits per second as of late last year, or as of late in 2013, according to Akamai Technologies. Alright, let's skip a paragraph. As federal officials find themselves at the center of controversy over net neutrality and the regulation of private internet service providers like Comcast and Time Warner Cable, Chattanooga offers an alternative model for keeping people connected. The city-owned agency, the Electric Power Board, runs its own network, offering a higher speed service than any of its private sector competitors can manage. The problem with fiber networks is that they're hugely expensive to install and maintain, requiring operators to lay new wiring underground and link it to individual homes. Since 1996, cable operators have invested $210 billion in broadband networks and other infrastructure, according to the National Cable and Telecommunications Association. But here's a key paragraph right here. Since there's little competition in the broadband industry, some industry experts believe that there's little incentive for broadband providers to dramatically beef up their bandwidth and dramatically improve their infrastructure. I don't know why they say some experts believe, because that's actually what's been happening. Is still there's not a ton of all of a sudden fiber optic networks that are being built by private corporations. Alright, let's skip down a little bit. And the city had to contend with lawsuits from Comcast and local cable operators as it worked to get the network up and running. So it's not just that the private internet service providers do not want to invest in providing more broadband service, but they're actually going to fight the cities whenever they do it. So it's not about innovation, it's just about fucking profits. They want to make sure they want to keep the profits for themselves. They're going to do everything to make sure that they can keep all that power by not having any competition. So, of course, the Ajit and his other two compatriots are fucking liars.